allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
The mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. We need approval of the agenda. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Tiger Spotlight.
A few people to recognize for Tiger Spotlight this month. First one, I want to recognize the October is National Principals Month. So at Marshall Public Schools, we have some of the best principals. We want to recognize them this month. Our principals work tirelessly each day to ensure the buildings run smoothly and staff and students' needs are met. So we want to invite everyone to join us this month and just saying thank you to the building principals.
Absolutely.
I also want to recognize custodians. Custodian Day was actually, I think it was yesterday, but we recognize them today. So I just want to say thank you to all of our custodians. The behind the scenes magic that keeps the school running. They do a great job. We really have a good team there. And Coaches Day is later on this week. We want to thank the coaches that spend their time enriching the lives of our students. Not only teach us skills of the activity, but teach young people skills that they will take with them for the rest of their lives. We want to say thank you to all of our coaches as well.
Speaking of coaches, Westby with his 500th win, that's pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably one of the few coaches in the state that accomplished that.
And that's just here.
Yeah, just
He's
here
got
in
like
Marshall.
640, I think, altogether.
He's not only does well with that, he does well with the kids in the classroom too. We're blessed to have him and all of our coaches.
Very good. We'll go ahead and now it's time for a public forum. Anybody in the public that would like to approach the board, now is your time. Moving on to our presentation. Our first presentation is our data presentation. Welcome.
Thinking. Super, here we go. All right, thank you for allowing me to come and share some of our data with you. We'll go ahead and just get started. So we're going to start with, so just a reminder, this is the 2022 data review. The data we're sharing with you is the data from last spring. Right now we are just finishing up our fall NWEA testing, so we'll have those results later this month or later, just coming up soon. But this data we're sharing with you here was from last spring. You can go ahead and click, yeah. All right, so who are our students? You can go ahead and go to the next one. So here we just wanted to give you a snapshot of who are our kids. So when we talk about the data, what are our students that this data represents? So you can see each of our different subgroups. Our English learners, at Parkside last year we had 103 English learners or multilingual students, which is about 26% of our students over at Parkside. Our special education, we had 86 students identified for special ed, which is almost 22%, and our free and reduced students last year were 200 students, or 51% of our students. That's okay. Is it frozen? I guess I'm done. No, I'm teasing.
You're just getting started.
Right.
When we're waiting for that to come back up, we can talk a little bit about how we use some of this data. So this information Beth is pulling up, this is all available to community members as well. It's on the Minnesota report card site. And we'll pull that up occasionally and check, buildings against each other, but also we can compare to other districts and such. And this is good snapshot data of what's happened the previous year. But then as we dig into NWAs and the DIBBLs and the more immediate responses, that helps us more for guiding instruction from one year to the next.
Yep, this is more big picture, I would say, culminating. We'll get into what NWA measures as compared to what the MCA measures here in a second. You can see Southview as well, our English learners, we had 124 identified last year, which was 24.5%. Our special education students was 17.6%, and then our free and reduced was a little over half with 52%. Our EL numbers at Southview went up, of course, because we brought our second grade over. So we have the majority of our EL students, because it being grades 2, 3, and 4, are now at Southview. And you'll notice when we go to the middle school, those numbers go down, especially for English learners, and we had 84 students. That's because often we see a large number of our multilingual students exiting in 3rd and 4th grade, because research shows if they've been in the United States having good, solid instruction within 5 to 7 years, they should meet exit requirement. So that's good. We want our numbers to go down at the middle school level. And of course, we're always getting new students as well. So our English learners, or our multilingual learners, were 84 students last year, which is 11%. Special ed was 16%, free and reduced is 46%. And we didn't have any homeless students identified at the middle school last year. And then for the high school, you can see our numbers go down even a little bit more, which is always good for our multilingual learners. We're 68 at the high school, which is 8%. Our special ed is 11%. Free and reduced is 28.5%.
Is that done at the high school because they're not filling out the slips, or is that just the progression of every year? It seems like our free and reduced lunch goes up.
Oh, for free and reduced? Why is it down at the high school? It just, sometimes it is that, of turning the slips in, just kind of depends.
What's our overall free and reduced, like district-wide? Is it still like 45?
That's where it was. Yeah, we saw it go down over the pandemic because of all the meals were free. Now we're seeing that number increase again because this year we're charging. And we don't have our final numbers yet, I don't believe. Do we, Dion? Yeah, for this school year.
I'd say the other thing with the free and reduced number, the high school is lower. As our non-public students enter the high school, we see fewer numbers of those students that qualify for free and reduced, and then they are part of our high school population.
Okay.
All right, so let's dig into the data. Go to the next one. So let's start with our NWEA. So NWEA, all students in grades kindergarten and then through grade 10, you can see here for reading, take the NWEA. We look at our results in 2 different ways. This first one here is the students meeting their growth projection. So they take it in the fall, they get a RIT score, and then what NWEA does is they, based on their RIT score, the grade level, they look at lots of different things, then they calculate what should they score in the spring. So we look at our students, you can see the percentages that met that growth projection from fall to spring. So every student is completely different. Usually if they score lower for their grade level, they'll have a bigger growth projection that they should have because they should make more gains. If they are a higher student, then it's usually smaller. NWA predicts it to be smaller. So you can see what percentage of our students met their growth projection. And the different colors are the cohorts of kids. So you can see like in 2021, it was 60%, the same cohort was 54% last year. And you can see it going all the way down. Of course, in 1920, we didn't do our spring testing because of COVID and everyone being at home. But so you can look at it 2 different ways. You can look at the grade level, and then you can look at the cohorts. Some of them you can go back further, of course, our older grades. So this was for the reading assessment. And then you can click to the next one. The same thing for the math assessment. It gives a growth projection for math as well. You can see how our students scored, and then you can look at them as a cohort as well. And then this next one here is students at or above the mean writ. In 2020, NWEA released new mean writ scores, and they looked at, I don't even remember how many thousands, like 20,000, probably even more than that, thousands of students, and their mean writ changed a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. So we look at the students who met that grade level mean writ at the end of the year. Again, you can see just for the year, the percentage of our students in reading met, and then you can look at them as a cohort as well to see how they have done.
What does the mean writ mean? Is that a national average or
Correct.
something? Or?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
where NWA feels based on all of these thousands of students that take it, where they should fall with the score. Yep, and here's the math. Exact same thing again. The math and the reading mean writ number are not the exact same number. But again, NWA uses some mathematical calculation to figure out what it should be. So you can look at cohorts of kids and you can look at them just last year. Okay, so now our MCA scores. So I should have mentioned the NWEA test, it responds dynamically to the students. So where they score, in the fall, it starts them all at grade level. If they start to get it wrong, it gets easier for them. Then when they get one right, it'll get a little bit harder, and it just responds to how they answer the question. So that's how some students, if they're a third grader, they might actually have a score at a fifth grade level, because that means they got a lot of questions correct, or they could score in the first grade level, whatever it is, because the test goes up and down. Now, the MCA, the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment, is assessing the standards. So the standards that MDE, or the Minnesota Department of Education, has set forth, they are assessing the students in these standards. So you can see here our scores in 21-22. You can see if I highlighted them in yellow, it means we are below what the state average was. Or I mean the percent that met, the MCA, or met or exceeded the MCAs. And then we have grade 8 and grade 10, which exceeded the state level. You can see we are behind in quite a few areas. We'll look at this more when we get into our work session here in a little bit, some things we're doing. But the other way you can look at it as well is look at them as a cohort. I didn't color code them that way because we had to decide which way should we color code them. Because with MDE, they don't look at cohorts of students, they look at just this year, how did the kids do as compared to the state. But you can look, like, for example, our fourth graders, when they were third graders, 41.8% met on the MCAs, last year 43.9. So as a cohort, they're going up. That's, of course, what we want to see. So if you look at those, a lot of our grade levels made some great gains in their MCA reading, and we'll talk about that in a couple slides here. You can go ahead and go into math. Our math scores are looking pretty good. You can see the majority we are above the state level in math. You can see where our scores are as compared to the state, and then at the bottom, I forgot to mention with reading, but you can see Marshall Public Schools, our entire district, as well. And then science, we're doing very well in science. This is a big celebration. You can see we are above the state average in all of them. And so in science, they only take it in grades 5, 8, and then in high school, they take it after they've taken biology. So usually it's their 10th grade year, kind of depends, but it's after they take that biology course that they take the MCA in the high school. So the grade varies, normally 10th grade, but doing very well in the science MCA. So this is a new report. It's probably existed, but I just found it on the report, and I'm like, oh, this is a super cool report. So what this does is it looks at, we haven't had it for a few years because of COVID. They couldn't compare the year before. COVID, as we know, messed a lot of things up. It messed our data up as well. But finally, we have enough data post-COVID that they can start comparing. So if you look at our Southview students, now it's not split out third and fourth grade, it's just Southview, the school. You can see in math and reading, so we'll start with math, the achievement level improved. So they looked at actually it would just be our fourth graders because they don't take it in second grade. So looking at just our fourth graders at Southview. In third grade, what was their score? Now as fourth graders, what percentage of our kids, their score improved from third to fourth grade? So you can see 17.7% of our kids' scores improved. That's good. That's what we want to see, especially with COVID and everything went on. We want to see our scores improve. Achievement level maintained. You can see we had 40% or 40.5% of our students where their level maintained. Now achievement level decreased, or if our students do not meet, so the MCA, they categorize them and does not meet, partially meets, meets, and exceeds. So that's what it means by does not meet. So you can see the percentages. If you look at reading, especially our achievement level improved, we're above the state average. So where we saw, there was a lot of yellow in, or being below the state average, our kids are improving, and that's what we want to see. So from one year to the next, their scores are getting better, which is great. And you see like the achievement level decreased or does not meet, you want to be below the state average in that one. So that one you kind of have to look at a little bit differently. Now you can see the middle school, this will be grades 5 through 8 because they have that previous year. Especially look at math, our achievement level improved, 29.5% were in the state. At the middle school level, it was only 18.2%. So really some celebrations in there as well. I don't need to read each of them. You can read and see them. But this report is really nice to see because we can see the progress our kids are making, because that's really what we're looking at, because we know our kids, all kids in general, fell behind during COVID. Our teachers did a phenomenal job of working with the resources we had and teaching at home, but we know it's best to be in person, and unfortunately we couldn't be. So we are getting better, and we are working hard to continue to improve our scores.
And Beth, I just want to clarify on that one, the high school isn't on that report because they don't test every year at the high
Thank
school
you.
either.
Yeah,
So-
yep. Because if you think, yeah, exactly, they don't test every year. I don't need to clarify that. Okay, I'm ready to move on. All right, our multilingual learners or our access assessment, our EL learners. So the access assessment is completely separate. We're a WIDA state, a WIDA consortium, so our kids take the access assessment, which is an assessment developed by the WIDA consortium. And then the state of Minnesota then decides what does exit criteria for our EL students in Minnesota. They have to have a composite score of 4.5 or higher on the access with at least 3 of the domain scores. So they have to take 4 subtests in the access: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. 3 of the 4 have to be at a 3.5, 3.5 or higher in order to exit. So they have to meet the different criteria to exit EL services. So I just wanted to do a comparison from 2021 then to last year. In 1920, we did, even though we went into shutdown mode in March, thankfully we had all of our access testing completed. That wasn't the case with everyone in the state. So we weren't able to compare it because the state just didn't give us the information we needed. But we have the information from last year. We had 2 years ago in 2021, we had 28 students, which still is a celebration because, again, with COVID. If you look at last year, we had 45 students district-wide exit out of EL, so they met the requirements, which is huge. You can see the numbers from the different schools, and of course it says West Side and Southview because in 2021 it was West Side, and then it was Southview last year. So just great gains in our EL department. Again, you can see, look at Southview, 24 students. The majority of them were 4th graders, so then that makes that class size smaller coming here to the middle school this year. So this one here, so very similar to NWEA and MCA where they say where should they go? So again, they can look at where were the kids last year on the access assessment. They look at their composite, so their overall score, and then where should they be at the end of the year. So again, we finally have this report back. It's been a couple of years. You can see Parkside, our students are achieving well over, the school district as well as statewide. We are a lot higher. Now, this doesn't mean they're necessarily met exit criteria, but they met their goal. So MDE figures out how long have they been in the United States. They figure out that 5 to 7 year factor, and then what should they score each year in order to meet exit requirement in 5 to 7 years. So our Parkside kiddos are really making great progress to meet exit criteria. And you can see Southview too, well above in both statewide and then our district average too, but doing very well on the kids who met their target. So this one here is the middle school. You can see our middle school is below the statewide and then our district average. We'll have more discussion about this as well too, but we've had a lot of discussion, why is our middle school lower? And we've had great discussion around it. What are we going to do to really meet those needs? And you think about our kids, our high achieving EL learners are exiting. So the kids that are in the middle school level, we do have some work to do with them. And we'll just keep trugging along with our EL learners. And the same thing with the high school as well. Many of our high school students are what we call LTEL students, or long-term English learners, which means they haven't met that 7-year mark and exited out of EL. So what can we do for those students? As well as the high school level, we get several what we call SLIFE students, So students with limited formal education, I can't remember what it all stands for, but what it means is they're coming to the United States, coming to Marshall Public Schools. We might have someone who is 18 years old and has never been to school before. So it's, thankfully, MDE recognizes that as long as we report them correctly. Then when they're looking at this, who reached or went past their target, they will give them an extra year or two. But still, our high school team works hard because we want to try and get them as far as we can before they age out, of course.
And research says it takes up to 7 years for people to become proficient in the language in those 4 areas.
Exactly, yep, the reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So you see our high school level, or our high school percentage is a little bit lower, but again, working hard on it, and there are challenges when a student comes and has never been to school before. It's different when they come as a kindergartner and haven't been to school, but when they come as a sophomore or junior, it's hard work. I'm ready. All right, areas to celebrate. I've already mentioned all of these, but I just wanted to point them out again. We had 45 multilingual learners meet exit criteria. It's huge. We are actually back to or actually even beat post-pandemic numbers, so that's really exciting. We're above the state average in all 3 of the sciences, 5th grade, 8th grade, and high school, it's awesome. And then we're above the state average for the sciences students whose academic level improved on the reading MCA at Southview and math at the middle school. So that's huge. So they're not only looking at did they score 450, they're looking at they actually went from does not meet to partially meets or meets to exceeds, whatever it may be. So some really good things. Our data really, it really does demonstrate and show all the hard work that our teachers are doing day in and day out, and it's reflective of that. I think that's the end. Yes.
How do our teachers use the data, the NWEA data compared to the MCA? My experience was the NWEA served instructional.
Exactly.
MCA was end of the year and not necessarily serving instruction. Is that still the case?
Correct, yep. And the hard thing with the nice thing about the MCA is we used to, like back when I was in the classroom, we wouldn't even get the scores until August, and it was like, those kids have moved on, they're in the next grade. Now they get a preliminary score almost immediately, isn't it, Jeremy? It's pretty
Within 24 hours.
Within 24 hours. So at least we can use it to see how we're doing, but yes, it's at the end of the year, where NWEA, we do use it for instructional purposes because we take it in the fall, some in the winter, and then in the spring, of course.
The MCA major purpose still to assess how well we're meeting the standards?
Correct, the state standards, yep.
We'll also use it when we're looking at curriculum and what are we teaching, how are we teaching? Do we need to make some adjustments there?
Yep.
It's a data point we'll consider.
Yep, and then as the state adopts new curriculum standards, so every 10 years they adopt new standards, then the MCA is reflective of that as well. So then we have to plan, like for example, new science standards, we're doing a rollout because in 24, 25, I believe the MCA 4 in science comes out, so we have to make sure we are teaching those standards so the kids are ready to take the newest MCA in a few years.
Are we doing the mid-year NWEA to dipstick to see how our kids are doing?
We do in, not all levels, but we do in some.
So-
Yep. But we also have, I don't have this data up here, but we're doing DIBELS K4 as well, which is really helping us with our instruction and knowing what we really need to target in the areas. Because we have, like, for example, NWEA in 2nd grade, we can see how the kids score, but yet really, if they're low, why are they low? And that's what we're using DIBELS for and trying to figure out where do we really need to be specific in our instruction with the kids.
Can you explain DIBELS?
Yep, so DIBELS, Dynamic Indicator, doesn't matter what it stands for.
Another acronym.
Yeah, another acronym.
The process of how they're getting the information, how they're using it.
Yep, so depending on the grade level, so it starts in kindergarten, and they'll assess like letter naming, letter fluency. When it gets into 1st grade, it's those. So can they name their letters? Can they tell me the sounds of them? And then it gets into reading nonsense words, as well as some fluency, and then it just keeps building from there. But we gave it all, and then some of them go away. Like, I believe it's by 2nd grade, then the letter naming goes away, because if kids don't know their letter names in 2nd grade, then we really need to focus on that. But so it progressively gets, I'm going to say, more difficult at the grade. Then when we get the results, we can look at them and see, oh my goodness, Johnny and Sarah are low in, I don't know, nonsense words. So do they have their phonemic awareness skills? And
So is this through a test they're doing?
Yeah, so the Dibbles is an assessment given,
It's
yeah.
a screener that replaced a different screener we had been using.
Yep.
This one is, they're using it to form groups in class for classroom
Correct, and it's
instruction,
given
we dropped
one-on-one.
another one to bring this one in.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. MCA and MWA are done on the computer. Dibbles is one-on-one, so
Okay.
it's the teacher giving it to the student one-on-one, so it's not the computer, which is nice too, because you can listen, like if the student's reading, you can make notes, like, you know, whatever the notes are, which is nice.
A group for instruction.
Exactly.
Skills.
Yep, skill, yeah, exactly. Super, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our consent agenda, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please vote. It's approved. Board forum, board members? Anybody have anything to bring up?
Children's meeting that was supposed to come up, she's postponed till December. It's Children's Collaborative, so I have nothing to report there. When are we having our first staff development meeting, committee?
I was just looking at the calendar, it'll be coming up.
Okay. When we have that, I'll report.
Probably end of October, early.
Okay, thank you.
I can just share at this point too, the Pride and the Tiger Hall of Honor banquet is October 30th. That's coming up too. If people are interested in that, we have some inductees that will be part of that this year. So encourage you to check that one out and attend if you're able.
Good. Moving on to discussion items. Our first discussion item is the review policies 411 through 415 and 417. Any questions on these? I don't think any of them have changed.
Not a lot of changes.
Any
Minor changes.
questions? And this is a second reading of policies 406 through 410. On the second reading, did anybody come up with any questions? Thank you, board meeting. This first part of our meeting night is adjourned.